Hey guys, in the last podcast we talked about using includes, and we're kind of over the next couple podcasts we're building this little website here. And what I want to talk about today is variables. And we talked about variables a little bit before, but you remember a variable basically is a container, and that container has a name, and you can change out the data that's in that container. And what's really handy about that is you can, especially with something on a website like a form that a user might fill out where they're, subscribing to a mailing list or putting in their credit card information in a shopping cart, things like that. You want to take that data and put it into variables, but you want to be able to pass it from page to page, which is very important. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how that's done. Okay, in the last episode, we created a bunch of files here, and let's go in. It's in the htdocs directory here, and the includes folder. Let's just keep working out of here because this is what we're going to continue to do here. I'm going to go ahead and, wait a minute, we need to open TextMate. And I'm going to pull this whole folder into TextMate because I want to see it in the drawer view, and here we go. Okay, let's go into the index file for just a second. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to use, there's several methods that you can use to pass variables from one page to the next. And the main two methods we're going to talk about, actually the one we're going to talk about today is the get method. And the get method allows us to pass pass a variable in the URL. So it can be part of the link that I go to for the next page. It'll tell that page, hey, here's some variable and here's what the values are set to. And the other method you would use on forms, which is a post method, and that basically passes that data kind of invisibly to the next page. But we're not going to worry about that now. We're just using simple stuff, and none of it's security sensitive or anything really. And so what we're going to do is we're going to simply learn how to pass a variable. Okay, so what I want to do is, the first thing is we go over to the browser here. Let's look up in the URL. Basically, I left this off at a folder, and the reason it works is because it knows if I don't specify a document, it's going to go find the index page, okay? So let's go ahead and type that in for now, index.php, so you can see what's going on. Now, I can pass a variable to this document, and the way I would do that is this. I'm going to go ahead and say question mark, and I'm going to say page equals home. Okay. Now what I've done here is I've said to the server here that this question mark indicates that, okay, we're going to go to the index.php page, and what I'm going to do is this question mark says heads up, here comes some variables, and I'm going to say page equals home. This is just passing one variable. I've passed a variable called page. I've set the value to home. I can pass multiple variables if I use the ampersand. So I would say, for instance, user equals Bob. Then I've passed two variables now, and I've used the ampersand. So I've said the page is set to home and the user is set to Bob. We're not going to worry about that right now, but that's how you would pass. And I keep using the ampersand, and you can keep passing variables. If you ever use websites like Amazon or eBay, you'll notice that they use URL variable passing, and sometimes these links or the URLs get really long, and you'll see a lot of these things going on in there. And that's basically what's going on, is it's passing URL information via the link. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and let's just say, let's go back to the page equals home, and we're going to leave it at that for a second. Okay, so now let's go in here. What I'm going to do is let's cut these out for just a second. We'll put them back in a minute. And what we're going to do here is go up here, and I'm just going to, first of all, I have to tell PHP to get that variable out of the URL. It won't just throw it in automatically. And so this is how you do it. We have to set a localized variable in this page. And let's keep it the same name to keep everything easy. And what we're going to say is $page. So there's our variable. And what it's going to equal is, and here's a little kind of function thing here that you can look at. You're going to use $_ and then all capital letters, GET. Then we're going to use square braces, followed by a semicolon, and in the square braces we're going to use, you can use a single or double quotes, and we'll say page. Now what I've just told the server is this: hey, you're going to set up a new variable called page and put the data, you're going to use the get type here, and you're going to pull page out of the URL. And what that does, and if I use the post property, we're going to use $_post, but don't worry about that for now. We're going to use the $_get. That means get this variable out of the URL. Which variable do I get? Sometimes there's multiple. Well, I'm going to get the one called page. Okay, now be very careful, because I've created applications and built PHP scripts before that use this, and sometimes I get lazy and I forget what the variable was called in one place. This gives you an opportunity to change the name. I could change this to name equals, and it still works. Now my localized variable that I'm going to use throughout the rest of the document is called name, but the other variable is called page. And this can get real confusing. So try and keep these consistent rather than rename them unless you're in a situation where you have to. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just simply going to echo. We're going to use the echo command, and we're going to say, let's just say page. Okay. So what we're going to do is grab that variable and then tell it to put it into the page. Let's save this document. Let's go back to the browser. Okay, so here we go. Index.php !page equals home, and I'm going to hit return, and you can see that we have home over here. So that's exactly what we wanted to. I could change the page to portfolio, and what it's going to do is echo that name out. Oops, sorry, I can't spell it right. Folio. Okay, and there we go. We changed to portfolio when I go to that link. So what we've done is a simple script that grabs a variable and then prints it out on the page. Okay, big enough deal. So that's really what you're looking at. So what we're going to do is we're going to send some variables. We're not going to echo them out to the page, but we're going to use this in the next podcast to show PHP which. You remember our little application here is we're using includes to include, and over here, open this folder, any of 4 content pages depending on what the URL is. So I'm going to show you how to use this variable to switch around between them. Okay, so we'll do that in the next podcast, so I'll see you then.